Hello and welcome to RS Agarwal's IAS. In this video of the Daily News Express, let us discuss the important topics appearing in the Hindu newspaper dated 8 December 2020. Let us start. This is the list of topics that we'll be discussing today. We'll talk about the farm bills in the first topic, some opposition to it. Then we'll talk about skill development among the Indian youth. Then we'll talk about women empowerment through this scheme called Duet, which is not a government scheme, but then an idea put forth by the author. We'll discuss about organic farming, some details related to that with regards to prelims. Then we'll discuss about arms race, which is a new topic that has come into news. Let us move on to the first article of the day. Here we are talking about the farm bills and the scenario that is happening in the country. Now, this article provides some ideas as to why the farm bills are not the right thing or not the best thing in the favor of the farmers. So, look at it from the perspective of using this aspects or using these points to write in the negatives in your mains answers. So, this caters to GS paper 2, and the first thing that the author is talking about, see, predominantly the authors are lawyers, so they are making the points mostly from the law perspective. So the authors are talking about how the farm bills are making farm trading or the farmers trading similar to stock trading. So when you do stock market or stock trading, you have to be aware of the details, the nuances, what is coming into picture and what is not. But that can only be done by those who are aware of it and those who know what to do. But here farmers are not aware of these things, so it is much like a metaphysical concept for the farmers. Apart from this, it is also talking about how the center has deliberated or legislated on a topic or a list that is the center's list. It is not the state list. So when I talk about agriculture, agriculture is a part of the state list and not the center's list. So this is another problem that has been put forth by the author, saying this is what do you say, as the encroachment on the power of the state, and it is something called as the usurping the powers of the state. It is usurping the powers of the state, and this acts that are the farm bills, they lack something called as a legal framework, first thing. Then he talks about how it deprives the states from a proper revenue. Then it talks about how it challenges the doctrine of separation of powers. It challenges the doctrine of separation of powers, and this is something which is against the idea of democracy. So these are some basic things that are spoken about in this article. Let us go in some more detail to talk about this particular farm bills. So firstly, when I spoke to you about stock trading, this becomes very technical aspect. This trading given to the farmer here becomes technical aspect, because when you talk about corporate entities, if you talk about other entities that also come into the picture, it becomes digitized as such. So farmers have no idea about how this digitization works, what they are supposed to do with digitization. So to make sure that they are able to learn this, or they are getting to learn this, they will hire middlemen. The whole idea of this farm bills was to get rid of this power of middlemen and the so-called mandis that you can say. But now, due to these aspects, middlemen will come into picture, and the author believes more and more middlemen come into picture, and this will have the burden on the farmers to spend more and more money. That is, increased costs is what this article or the author says. Apart from this, we can say the incoming of courts, or when the dispute resolution is not done in the proper manner, which is first provided through DM, or the bureaucracy, it is not done, they will have to go to the lawyers. And even before that, when you do something called as contract, they will need lawyers to form the right kind of contracts for them to be in their legal help. Again, that will make them incur a lot of legal costs. So basically, the bills are pushing the farmers to incur more and more costs. Apart from this, from another legal perspective, you can say it encroaches the rights of the farmers under Article 19, that is freedom to trade. Right? So the farmers can decide when to do, what to do. Again, you cannot curb the farmers to trade here, to trade there. Second thing is Article 21, right to livelihood. In case they lose their livelihood due to these corporates, it is infringing their Article 21. Then again, it talks about Article 43, which is DPSP, which talks about decent livelihood for the farmers or a decent living for anyone for that matter. So this is again encroaching that particular right is what these authors are saying. Let's go into a little more details. Now, when you talk about these bills, there is a definition of farmer provided in these bills. In this definition, there is no mention of a cropper, there is no mention of a laborer, agricultural laborer, you can say. There is no mention of a tiller. These three things are not mentioned in these bills, or these three aspects are not included in the definition of farmers. So this, what this does is this excludes this class of people from getting access to rights. So you can talk about a person who is a farmer who owns a land, but what about a cropper? What about a tiller? And what about an agricultural laborer? They also call themselves farmers. So if it's not a part of this, how will they get access to the rights is another very basic question being asked here. Then you can talk about the corporates, or you can talk about the sponsors. Now these corporates will get into a contract with the farmer and say, if this is the yield, we will take the produce. But it is also giving some unwielding power to the sponsors to refuse the yield for any reason. Okay, there is no particular reason. They can refuse the yield for any reason. Let's say they believe that the yield is not good enough. Just very simple reason, the yield is not good enough. They can refuse the yield. Okay, that is one place where the sponsors or the corporates would get more power, and they will be in charge of all this. Like I told you, some farmers will be aware of how to hire a lawyer, what a contract will say, what they have done with the contract, but some farmers will not be aware of it. They will be in need of money, so they will get in deal with these people, and they can be in charge of the legal blind turns, and they can influence the farmer as well. Another aspect that comes into picture is when you trade with these people, when the farmers are trading with these people, the people who are there who have signed the contract, or you can say the corporates or the sponsors, will only accept the produce if the quality standard and the grade is good. Only then they will accept the produce, otherwise they will not accept the produce. So in case if it is not predictable, if it is not done properly, how will they survive if it's not taken properly from the farmers, if it's not procured from the farmers? How will they survive? This is nothing but exploitation, is what the authors are believing in this article. Apart from this, you can talk about how this thing can affect the farmer's livelihood, can affect their mental idea, because it is not like a marketing strategy, or it is not like a book, or it's not like a article that you are writing. So if you say you've written an article and you submit it to your sponsor, the sponsor says, yeah, all these things can be bettered, so you rewrite the article and send back to them. But here it's a produce, it's once it's grown, you can't do anything about it, and the farmer is at utter loss. This can also lead to farmer trying to bring out the best produce by overplanting, by doing overplantation, or doing excessive use of chemicals on the land. So this thing can affect the farmers, and the quality check, the power to quality check is completely on the sponsor or the corporate. It is done by the third party. It is granted to him without any kind of prejudices or any kind of standard checks. So this is another important issue you have to understand. Lastly, we have to talk about dispute resolution. Now I told you previously, if you talk about grievance redressal or dispute resolution, we have understood that the power is directly not going to the courts. It is not done in civil courts. It is done in the hands of subdivisional magistrate, or the DM, you can say. Now who is a part of this, who is representing whom, is again not decided by them, and the solution lies with the bureaucracy. There is no appeal for them, there is no challenge for them, which is in violation of what you call as access to justice, right? Access to justice, again, which talks about Article 14, Article 21, Article 39, legal aid. All these things come into picture. So we have to understand that these acts, considering so many flaws, when you talk about from a law perspective, how will they stand relevant, or how will they provide some kind of benefit to the farmers, is a good question to ask. Then there are some terms used in this laws, like the extraordinary circumstances, right? Extraordinary price rise. What are these terms? How are they coming into picture? Who defines it is very important. So these things also have to be defined. So if you see here, the ground has fallen out from beneath the farmer's feet. The farm acts are farmer unfriendly and in violation to important constitutional safeguards. So there are protests going on. The government has been in very nice negotiation with the farmers, has given space for them to negotiate. If they do it well, then these things can be amended and can be taken back and rolled out in a better manner, is what this article is saying. Let us move on to the next article of the day. Here we are talking about skill development among the Indian youth. This caters to GS paper 2. Now, if you talk about skill development and if you talk about the Indian youth, you have to understand that India has, you can say, the world's largest youth population. It has the world's largest youth population. And when you talk about this youth population, of course, there are specific things that you have to cater to these people. Now, this can be education or simply skills. And considering the extent of the population of youth in the country, it is very, very difficult for the government to educate every single person, every single youth. And when incoming like the pandemic happens, it becomes even more difficult. So basically what happens is education of the youth is affected, and several youths have even lost their jobs in the extreme case scenario. So both things are coming into picture. Now, if you talk about the Right to Education Act, this provides for free and compulsory education for all from the age of 6 to 14. Free and compulsory education to these people. But we are also understood that though this talks about free and compulsory education, this is not inclusive of vocational education and training. It's not inclusive of that. And if you talk about the youth, they only get vocational training when they are on jobs. They don't go to jobs with vocational training, but they get vocational training when they are in jobs. So this is the current scenario that is going on. Let us go in some more details and try to understand some more aspects. So if you talk about the skill development ecosystem in India, it is pretty straightforward and it's pretty clear. Several changes have been made since the year 2019, which when it was introduced, and in the year 2015 when Modi government came into power, it revamped it completely with new ideas, new developments, new skills being incorporated, etc. So this is the current scenario, which is doing a very good job at what it aimed at doing. Another important aspect that comes into picture is the UNESCO State of Education Report 2020. This is talking about the UNESCO State of Education Report 2020, which provides the information about the skills and growth in some sectors, right? It is said that India has done amazing progress in some sectors, while some sectors it has not done amazing progress. But what is to be noted in this report is India as a country, when it comes to skill education, faces several challenges. Now, what are these challenges we have to be aware of? Let us see. Now, if you talk about challenges, first is lack of aspiration. Lack of aspiration among youth. Simply talking about lethargy or laziness. The youth are not uh, ready to do this. The youth are not ready to get skilled. They are ready to go with their own flow. So lack of aspiration is very, very important. Second thing is stigma. So skills can be carpentry, skills can be tailoring, skills can be gardening, anything, but there are several stigmas attached to it. These youth who have lived on their parents' money the whole life are very, very skeptical about calling themselves a carpenter, calling themselves a trainer. Though they have not excelled in their academics, they are still very worried about having these jobs and earning money from these jobs. So this is another thing. Forget about the youth themselves, but the people around them start to stigmatize them, saying, hey, he's a carpenter, he's a tailor, he's a driver, and these things. So this stigma has to be moved away, because it's not the job, it's the person that you have to respect. Very important thing. So this brings us to the third point, where awareness is not sufficiently created. You have to create awareness about all these things. We have to speak up about all these things and make sure people are learning about it. So awareness, we have to break some stereotypes. We have to understand that the payment that these skilled employees get are equal to what the undergraduates or the graduates from universities get, right? It is just that they can fall majorly into the formal workforce. These people might not suddenly enter the formal workforce, but then the pay is almost equal and the labor is also almost equal. And it is believed that these people who are vocationally trained take less time. They take less time to enter the job field, whereas these undergraduates or graduates from the universities take a longer time to find a job. So we have to make sure all these things are taken care of. These things are considered, and we have to have proper coordination between various ministries, between various departments, to make sure everything is falling into place and we have proper things set up here. Now, what does national education policy talk about this? The National Education Policy 2020 very predominantly provides the focus on what you call as vocational training. It says we have to have vocational training because, like I spoke to you previously, when RTE we learned that children only, or the students or the youth only have vocational training when they are on jobs. Now this talks about a vocational training where it says 50% of all learners should get vocational training, and it should be started from the class 6 level itself. It should be started from the class 6 level itself. It should be related, or it should be relevant to local communities or the local ecosystem. Let's say this person is living in a remote village. What will he do learning coding? What will he do learning machine learning? He should learn how to garden well, what are the skills needed for agriculture, what is the basic infrastructure needs. So these kind of training has to be given. It should be community specific or ecosystem specific. So with regards to the national education policy and the challenges that have been put forth, we should do a better job in coordination, and we should do a far stretching job so that everything falls into place and we have a better skilled ecosystem and better skilled youth in the country, is what this article talks about. With this, let us move on to the next article of the day. Here we are talking about protein. So these are some important takeaways from your prelims point of view, also from GS paper 3. So previously it was very tough to understand the structure of protein, to analyze the structure of protein, to predict and do several other things. But now a technology has come forward called as the AlphaFold 2. It is called as the AlphaFold 2, which is a part of the company called as DeepMind. And this company, with the help of artificial intelligence, is able to protect, or it is able to predict the protein structure. A breakthrough this is. That is why a very big article has been dedicated in your Hindu newspaper. It is a breakthrough because none of them were able to predict the protein structure, and this has been able to predict the protein structure with the help of artificial intelligence. So what is the importance of prediction of protein structure? This will help us understanding biological evolution. This will help us in understanding biological evolution. This will help us achieve some breakthrough with regards to some diseases, how they occur, how they can be treated. And it will help us in understanding the defense mechanisms of various organisms and of human beings. It will help us to get idea about genomes and genes in the human body. It will help us to get idea basically about the makeup of the human cells or the human body, etc. So these are some important breakthroughs that will be possible when the structure of protein has been properly predicted. Initially, this idea or this phenomena was very expensive, but now with the incoming of this technology, this has become less expensive and it's become easy for the people to understand all these things from the point of view of be it evolution, be it disease, be it agriculture, so on and so forth. So these are some key takeaways from this article. Let us move on to the next article of the day. Here we are talking about women empowerment through duet. This gets us to GS paper 2. Now duet is a scheme envisioned or envisaged by this author. It is not a government scheme, but it definitely makes sense. You can add it in one of your answers if need be. So when you talk about duet scheme, this comes into the picture of urban poor. The urban poor, or the people, urban or the poor people who are living in urban areas. Though they are less insecure than the people or than the poor living in rural areas, they have their own issues that they face. Let's forget about rural poor for now. Let's focus on the urban poor. They face various issues like illnesses. They face illnesses. They face underemployment because they have a lot more potential, but very less work is given to them, and of course very less pay is given, that is lack of pay. You can talk about urban problems like urban floods, cyclones, pandemic, lockdown. All these things are suffered by the urban poor. Now a major part of the urban poor are the urban women. So they are very big sufferers because they don't just suffer from infrastructural problems, they don't just suffer from economic problems, but they also suffer from social problems and mindset problems like patriarchy, stereotypes, etc. Now what are the solutions to make this urban poor life a better one? First is we can talk about the PDS system. We can universalize the PDS system so that they get better support and better standard of living when it comes to food. Otherwise, we can talk about the employment support. Now, when you talk about employment support, this idea of the author makes perfect sense. What is this? This is called as DUET. DUET stands for Decentralized Urban Employment and Training. This stands for Decentralized Urban Employment and Training. So what is this idea called decentralized urban employment and training? So this is somewhat based on what you have in rural areas called as Manrega, but we are changing it a little bit based on the European lines. So what we are doing is we are creating an idea called as job stamps. So through creating this idea called as job stamps, what we do is we provide these job stamp to various public institutions in the city or in the town. Like you have universities, you have hospitals, you have schools, you have museums, you have railway stations, you have public offices. So what they do is they have job stamps. All of these public institutions have a job stamp, and these job stamps are used to provide to a person who is ready to do a work. Okay, let me give you a better example. Let's say a university needs painting, or let's say the university needs whitewashing. So what you do is, instead of hiring painters, instead of spending money on having professional painters, instead of having a painting committee in your university, what you do is you use this scheme called Do It, and you say painters can come and paint the university in return of having the job stamps. So any freelancing painter who needs a job will come and paint your university and take this job stamp. He will take it and go to the government and say, I have done this work for this particular university, this is the money I was promised, and I want my remuneration because because of the work that I have done. So what the government does is this: the government, because of the work that this person has done, will provide money into their bank account. It is simply that they are having a job, and this public institutions are hiring laborers for doing odd jobs, and the government is paying them wages directly in their bank account. So what is the benefit of this? Benefit is that people are getting employed. No one will go to sleep hungry. It will activate employment scenario in the country, and it will avoid the need for these public institutions to have the special staff, like how you need to have a special staff of plumbing, or B grade workers or drivers. It will avoid the need, and these people can all come into this idea of job stamps. It will have proven work for all these people. Skills can come into picture, and so many better things can happen. It will simply push the demand in the economy. Very nice and very well thought of scheme provided by this author. Now we have to understand that this scheme should be done with keeping equality in mind, where all kind of workers have to be employed, right? Small workers, large workers, this community, that community. We should break all these barriers and have them all together. And what we can do is, in case we don't find the best work, we can also provide them on job training, on the job, where they are on the job and we still provide them training, so next time they can do a better job, or let's say in a better place. So this is the idea of duet scheme. Now, another innovation that the author provides in the duet scheme is how this duet scheme can only be prioritizing women of the country. Prioritize only women of the country, and all the work that is there should be provided only to women, not to men. So what are the merits of this? Merits is that women will not enter any other jobs, that is like how they do domestic work, or they do casual labor, or they do any kind of antisocial work. Nothing of that sort will be required from women. They will be able to do the right kind of dignified jobs and get dignified payment in their bank accounts. So this is very, very important. And it can also be empowering women to run placement agencies, where they can provide women, the women clan itself can provide women their jobs by taking into account this work from this various public institutions of that particular city or that particular district. So this is a very good thing. Second thing is, we can promote women workforce in the labor force participation. So as you know that the women or the female labor force participation in India is very less, is very, very low. And with the help of this job stamp scheme, we can help women get more jobs, and they can enter the workforce of the country. And of course, it will help them to become independent and not be at the disposal of their husbands. Of course, they can also be given opportunities of part-time, full-time, various innovative solution can be provided. It will simply give them economic independence. Now if you see, 15 to 59 years, women in 15 to 59 years only 20% of them are there in the female workforce of the country. This is a loss for our society, and this is a very very bad situation for our society to be in, because all segments of the society need to be empowered, be it women or be it anyone else. So this, the author is also believing that women in these positions can prevent corruption, as they will be made in charge, they will make sure ethics are put forth in the right manner, and this will help them bring out the best in themselves, and they will lose the fear that they will be living in their four walls. So of course this is the idea based on what you call as the service coupons in Europe. So these job stamps are called as service coupons in Europe, where they are used by the households, but here it can be used for public institutions. Not, if you believe that this not this might not work, it might. So we have to try it, and some or the other way it can be, the problem can be solved, and so much better things can be done. So a very good suggestion by the author, so you can pick up this as an innovative measure and write it in your answers. Think about it, think about the solution. What are the problems that can arise if we have this scheme? What are the better things that can come if we have this? But of course there will, a lot of problems will arise, that non-payment of wages, delay in payment of wages, social problems, mindset, prejudices, all this will arise. But then we have to chalk it out properly, and we have to be smart enough to use them in our answers as well. With this, let us move on to the next article of the day. Here we are talking about what we call as organic farming, and organic farming comes into picture from various points of view. If you talk about UPSC examination, now here we are saying that only organic farming allowed in Lakshadweep. This caters to GS paper 1, GS paper 2 and GS paper 3. Now what is the meaning of this concept called as organic farming? Let us go with the definition of FSSAI, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India Limited. This FSSAI says organic farming is a system of farm design and management to create an ecosystem of agriculture production without the use of synthetic external inputs like chemicals, fertilizers, pesticides, hormones, genetically modified organisms, etc. Let me repeat. Organic farming, according to FSSAI, is a system of farm design and management to create an ecosystem of agriculture production without the use of synthetic external inputs like fertilizers, pesticides, there is chemicals, synthetic hormones, genetically modified organisms as well. So where we are using all organic methods to produce. So this is, whatever is produced is coming from complete organic methods of production, and the food is also completely organic, well within the specified standards. So if you want to learn more about this idea, let's understand that India stands number one. India stands first when it comes to the number of organic farmers in the world. Okay, and we have the ninth largest area under organic farming. We have to note this, first in terms of the farmers, organic farmers, ninth in terms of the area. And we have Sikkim. This is an example, so it's an example, the first state in the world to become fully organic. It's an example in the world, and we have achieved this feat, that the first state in the world to become fully organic in the year 2016. And if you talk about Northeast India has been a traditional practitioner of what we call as the organic farming, and because of their tribal setup and the uh, this kind of ancestral hailings, they do not believe in using fertilizers or pesticides. They believe in organic farming, and India also exports sufficient organic farming produces like flax seeds, sesame, soya bean, medicinal plants, etc. And this number has been increasing day by day in India. So even if you go to supermarkets today, you will find various produce which is organic in nature. And government has done various things to develop organic farming. You have the Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, which is under the government and aims to promote organic farming. You have the National Program for Organic Production. This will cater to exports. You have other schemes like the food clusters that they have made, that is produce in India, soil health card scheme. All this helps in producing or in making the organic farming successful in the country. So this is about organic farming that we should be aware of. With this, let us move on to the next article of the day. Here we are talking about arms race. Arms race, as in, what I'm trying to say is This caters to GS paper 3 as well as GS paper 2, and this is the report released by CIPRI. CIPRI stands for the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Now this CIPRI report talks about the arms industry of the world and how the arms industry of the world is faring. So this talks about, in the top 10 countries, USA is the first and China is second. And if you talk about top 25 countries, West Asia has suddenly erupted as a part of this, and UAE has become a part of the top 25 nations. America's firms alone accounted for 61% of sales, and China's accounted for around 15% of the sales. So these are the important takeaways we have to understand from this article or this news that has been provided to us. And as you know, India also is a very big spender on arms and defense. Write to me in the comment section where India is falling in this report. Well, that's it on today's Daily News Express. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you have any doubts or discrepancies, don't forget to write to us in the comment section. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. Until next time, stay safe, take care, bye bye.